I do not like the Broadway line. Okay, but seriously, what can be done? I'll go over a few scenarios. A common plan I've seen is just having the N run full express to 2nd Avenue. It is just simple and effective to not have the N take its cataclysmic merge onto the local track. The biggest problem now is that Astoria is only served by the W. I mean, sure, 2nd Avenue could use the extra service, but this is too much of a trade-off. Only having the W on the Astoria line would leave the area pretty vastly underserved. Of course, you can run more W trains, but that doesn't replace the loss of an entire subway line, especially since the W is limited in train throughput thanks to the City Hall curve. This is a proposal I've thought over a lot, and it could work, but it has one huge flaw. This is more complicated than the first scenario with all Broadway locals heading to Astoria. This means the QBO local service has to run express and then switch from the Broadway/2nd Avenue track to the 6th Avenue/63rd Street tunnel track right before Lexington 63rd, which works well enough now with the M heading through 63rd. But there is a massive flaw in this plan. The problem with this scenario is that all QBO locals are heading via 63rd. There's no QBO local service at Queens Plaza, which would create a new element of hell at Roosevelt Avenue and cuts off access to Queens Plaza from 6 local stations. Plus, QBO local doesn't have an actual Lexington/6 train connection, now with the loss of 60th Street tunnel service, which would crowd the QBO Expresses even more. Here are the new routings for the Broadway line in this scenario. The Q and the W are going to be unchanged. For the N and R's routing, it's been so many takes that I'm just not going to bother trying to say it anymore, and I'll just put something up on the screen. This routing should hopefully minimize some confusion, since the N and R retain their roots in Queens. As for why this routing is possible, there is an interlocking between Brighton and 4th Avenue Local close to DeKalb. Also, this is assuming the B is swapped off by an express to eliminate junction congestion, as that seems like a reasonable prerequisite to this major restructuring of the Broadway line services. There's an extra merge/diverge for Brighton line trains in this scenario, but that seems like a worthy trade-off, and you can reasonably time trains well enough through this merge. At least better than what occurs at Herald Square or after DeKalb. As for weekend and late night service patterns, well, they would have to be unchanged from how they are now, since the W doesn't run and there's no Brighton Express, so this might make things pretty confusing. Now, what if the G is re-extended to Forest Hills to provide that local connection to Queens Plaza? If one of the other QBO locals has to run the Queenslink route, this could be a genuine solution, except for the whole manifestation of hell on earth that Lexington 53rd would become. Maybe a Queens Plaza and Queensboro Plaza transfer, and an in-system Lexington 63rd to Lexington 59th transfer could help. The most boring and likely scenario to happen in the future, the Broadway line gets CBTC, the ends switches get upgraded, and it's the 2030s now, or maybe even later. Maybe by then SAS Phase 2 is finally done? Hell no. With SAS being the 2nd Avenue subway, well, it's proposed to have a 63rd Street tunnel connection, which solves the problem of transferring to Lexington. Now, the usefulness of this connection will be debatable since Manhattan will be under the sea level by the time this section of SAS is built. To my knowledge, the R12s that ran on the L were not significantly modified in terms of weight, with sources mentioning that the dynamic brakes and the controller were cut out. The R12 was 73,100 pounds, and the lightest IRT train currently, the 142s, weigh even less than that. R142 cab cars, or A cars, only weigh 66,300 pounds, and regular cars, or B cars, weigh 72,000 pounds. I will also mention that the post-rebuild Redbirds also weigh less at 70,000 pounds, so time-wise, the 142s could end up on this L if it was recaptured. In summary, theoretically, the structure could run standard subway cars, but maybe not in a full 10-car set. The most likely service pattern is having the 5 take over the L, and the 3 heading to White Plains instead. But one problem is that a connection would be a massive undertaking, since it would have to branch off the Jerome Avenue line, and then emerge above ground somewhere before 149th Street 3rd Avenue. Final conclusion, by the time the 3rd Avenue L was cut back to the Bronx in the 50s, it was only a matter of time, as a replacement was always planned, but it never happened.
Rise and shine, pylon. Rise and shine. Not that I wish to imply there will be an episode 1 and 2, but instead I couldn't resist making a Half-Life reference when it comes to, shall we say, 3 equals.
The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world. So wake up.
Pylon.
Wake up and smell the ashes.